Mit den 1980er Jahren hat eine sehr wichtige Entwicklung in der Beziehung zwischen Großbritannien und der EU begonnen. Hier lernst du die wichtigsten Persönlichkeiten der 80er und 90er Jahre kennen. Dann verstehst du auch, warum Großbritannien bis heute der Europäischen Union zwiegespalten gegenübersteht.
Roehampton University in the west of London. When you look at the academic life here, it's hard to believe that Britain has a history of scepticism with Europe. It's even harder to believe Britain's attitude towards the EU was rather hostile in the 1980s, mainly because of one famous lady, the Iron Lady. Number 1. Margaret Thatcher.
Traditionally, it was the Labour Party who was against closer ties with the EEC, and the Conservatives, especially Edward Heath, were the ones who fought for it. But with Margaret Thatcher becoming chairperson of the Conservative Party in 1975 and Prime Minister in 1979, the Tories' attitude changed. She did not want Britain to be politically or socially integrated in the European Union. She also did not plan to sign the so-called Social Charter, which guarantees equal social and human rights to all citizens of the member states. She mainly felt that Britain was losing its independence and sovereignty by transferring the power of decision-making to Brussels.
And concentrate power at the centre of a European conglomerate would be highly damaging and would jeopardize the objectives we seek to achieve. But working more closely together does not require power to be centralized in Brussels or decisions to be taken by an appointed bureaucracy.
At this point, it is vital to make clear that Margaret Thatcher was not anti-European. All she was against was a European political union and the centralisation that would go along with it. In the same speech, she praises Britain's strong ties with Europe.
Over the centuries, we have fought to prevent Europe from falling under the dominance of a single power. We have fought and we have died for her freedom. Only miles from here in Belgium lie the bodies of 120,000 British soldiers who died in the First World War. Had it not been for that willingness to fight and to die, Europe would have been united long before now, but not in liberty, not in justice.
Neither were all her actions directed against the EEC. For example, she signed the Single European Act, which created the Single European Market, one of the most important acts in the process of European integration. Even though some of her actions supported the EEC, she fought, almost until her death in 2013, against the British dependency on European rules and regulations. And it was Europe that ultimately brought about Mrs. Thatcher's downfall as Prime Minister, as her increasingly anti-European views led the pro-Europeans in her party to move to oust her. It was time for a new era.
Number 2. John Major.
John Major, who replaced Margaret Thatcher, was more liberal. He ratified the Maastricht Treaty in 1992, which led to the formation of the European Union in 1993. The treaty established a European Union with EU citizenship granted to every citizen of a member state. EU citizenship enables people to vote and run for office in local and European Parliament elections in the EU country in which they live, regardless of their nationality. The treaty also provided for the introduction of a central banking system and a common currency, the euro. It committed member states to implementing common foreign and security policies and called for greater cooperation on various other issues, including environment and social policies.
There was a real sense that the success of the community depends upon decisions being taken as close as possible to the individual community citizens.
Britain, however, did not sign some of the agreements. Major opted out of the monetary union, and this is why Britain still has the pound. If you've ever travelled to Britain, you know that Britain hasn't signed the Schengen Agreement either. When crossing the UK border, you need to show your identity card or passport, whereas there are no border controls between European countries that have signed the agreement. Either way, the political wind had freshened. sweeping another personality into the Prime Minister's office.
Number 3. Tony Blair.
In 1997, Britain actually took a huge step towards the EU. Tony Blair and the Labour Party ensured an outright victory in the elections with their pro-European manifesto. Blair was very enthusiastic about the EU and he immediately signed the Social Charter. He even planned a referendum to adopt the euro. However, Blair did not manage to push it through during his time in office, because at that time, Britain's economy was doing well and support for entering the Eurozone was not widespread. Blair felt it was time for Britain to move beyond Thatcher's legacy. Even though Blair bonded more closely with the EU, Britain's relationship with the US was still more important to him.
Today we have launched a major new transatlantic trade initiative, the Transatlantic Economic Partnership, which will further add momentum to the process of developing what is already the most important bilateral trade relationship in the world.
After 9/11, Blair immediately stood behind the US and sent troops to Afghanistan and Iraq without even taking the opinion of other European countries into consideration.
This is not a conventional conflict. It's not fought in a conventional way. It takes a lot of strategy and planning and determination over a period of time to be successful.
His political behaviour shows that most British citizens don't see the European Union as a full-fledged counterweight to the United States. Although Britain's attitude towards the US has changed in the meantime, her Eurosceptic attitude towards the EU has persisted. This does not apply to the Scots, who strongly favour an EU membership. Es war also ein langer, verschlungener Weg von Margaret Thatchers ablehnender Haltung zu Tony Blairs Begeisterung. Hier nochmal die Zusammenfassung.
The leading political figures in the negotiations with Europe have been Margaret Thatcher, Prime Minister from 1979 to 1990. She was not strictly speaking anti-European, but definitely anti-Brussels, and she believed in a non-dependent, politically strong Britain. John Major, Prime Minister from 1990 to 1997. He was more liberal, ratifying the Maastricht Treaty in 1993, which led to the present European Union. However, he didn't believe in the euro and the monetary union. Tony Blair, Prime Minister from 1997 to 2007, was very pro-European. He signed up for the European Social Chapter and almost adopted the euro. But after 9/11, he sided with the US, sending troops to Afghanistan and Iraq without even consulting the EU.
Es geht weiter. Schau dir das nächste Kapitel an und hol dir den Spickzettel auf unserer Homepage von alphaLernen.